I want to talk about Joe Rogan for a minute. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I am not a huge podcast listener. Partly that's because of how busy I am doing all the content that I already do. So for those of you out there kind of keeping track at home, I did an hour with Megyn Kelly as her primary guest today. Then I did a 3-hour show for Clay and Buck. I am doing The Fade with Todd Furman. I am doing this Outkick the Show with you right now. I will be on with Laura Ingraham tonight on Fox News, and I have Fox Bet Live coming up in about an hour. What does all that mean? I will do 6 different shows for a total of something like, 6 hours of programming today. I don't even know what the total amount of programming is. The reason why I bring that up is because I don't watch or consume that many podcasts, right? Hardly any, because I'm so busy doing what I do. But I respect the intelligence of the conversations that Joe Rogan has. And what is interesting here is the rise of cancel culture under the guise of misinformation, whatever that means. If you have been paying attention to COVID for very long, initially we were all told COVID came from an animal. It now appears that COVID came from a virus escaping a lab. That seems to be the most likely outcome. We were told that masks would stop the spread of COVID. That certainly has not proven to be true, and in fact, most masks are comparatively worthless. We were told kids had to wear masks in schools or else it wouldn't be safe. That is not true. We were told that if you got the COVID vaccine, you would neither get nor spread COVID. That is also not true. A great deal of stories about COVID, it has taken 6 months or less to go from conspiracy theory to accepted truth. That's why rigorous examinations of scientific theories are necessary, okay? It's why the scientific method demands that every hypothesis be challenged. That's particularly the case as it pertains to COVID. And let me say this, by the way. People are over COVID by overwhelming numbers. From the most recent study at Monmouth, 70% of people are ready to get back to normalcy. Let me read these numbers to you because you're going to hear them and you're going to say, wow, this is pretty crazy as you pertain and analyze this. A national poll said 70% of people agree it's time we accept COVID is here to stay and we just need to get on with our lives. By party, 89% of Republicans agree. 71% of independents agree with that statement. 47% of Democrats agree. Do you know how hard it is to get 70% of Americans to agree on an issue as contentious as this? It is wild. The Bidas touch is basically to be on the opposite side of whatever the situation is in terms of what the American public wants. Let me repeat those numbers for you. 89% of Republicans agree it's time we accept COVID is here to stay and we just need to get on with our lives. 71% of independents, even 47% of Democrats. Obviously, I've been arguing we need to get back to our regular lives for a very long time. That is the national data, by the way, from a Monmouth poll that came out today. And so I think Joe Rogan is in an interesting spot because he is being attacked for the conversations that take place on his podcast. To me, the best thing that could happen for Joe Rogan is if he got fired by Spotify. I don't know the particulars of his contract, but I bet they would have to pay him out in order to move on from his spot right now. And if he moved on, he would be able to take his podcast wherever he wanted to go. He could start his own media company. He could likely charge people directly to be able to consume it. Heck, I would argue that somebody like Fox or a streaming platform like Fox Nation should hire him and put him behind the paywall. To me, that is a Howard Stern-like impact in the same way that satellite radio went out and gave Howard Stern a monster contract and told him, hey, just evangelize for our existing platform and bring your audience over from terrestrial radio. I would argue that there is certainly a brand, maybe that brand is Outkick, that there is certainly a brand out there that would be very happy to be affiliated with Joe Rogan and set up a high-level pay-for-play podcast experience, much like exists with Spotify right now, which is why I think Joe Rogan in many ways is uncancelable. Dave Chappelle, uncancelable. Howard Stern, back in the day, before he totally turned into a wuss, was uncancelable. There are relatively few media titans who become big enough that they are uncancelable for their audiences. I would argue Sean Hannity, I would argue Tucker Carlson, by and large, that their audiences are big enough that people will follow them. I would like to think in the years ahead, I will be in that position if I'm not already. And what these people have in common is they are authentic and they are willing to challenge conventional wisdom, and they have real conversations in an era that is steeped in artificiality. So I actually think that there is more power and more success available out there for Joe Rogan than there is for Spotify, because if they fire him, they are creating a new market competitor. Now, the woke don't really understand that they are providing the best possible advertising for Joe Rogan. And I was a little bit disappointed that Rogan kind of apologized in some way in the video that he put out, because to me, the woke don't understand basic business. And I've always been of the opinion, I really don't care what people think about me. And maybe that's rare. I don't know. I had a great event this weekend. I was down in the Dallas area with Ted Cruz, with Jordan Peterson, with Jesse Kelly, a really great group of people. We did an event, private event there over the course of the weekend with Ted Cruz and his staff. We had a great time. And I was having this conversation with somebody. I don't know what it is about me. I just don't care, right? I care what my wife thinks and what my 3 kids think of me. Otherwise, I don't really lose any sleep over what other people are saying about me. Listen if you enjoy the show. Don't listen if you don't enjoy the show. But when you're advertising how much you hate me, it's the best free advertising I could possibly get, because a huge number of people are still not aware of any one particular entertainer. So anytime a controversy arises, Dave Chappelle, best thing that ever happened to him was the transgender controversy associated with his Netflix controversy. Same thing now is happening with Joe Rogan. The audience is not going to leave you once they are committed to you. In fact, if you get canceled, you become a martyr. I would even argue that Donald Trump getting removed from social media, far from making him weaker, has actually made him stronger, because it's confirmed many of the criticisms that he made about big media to his audience as a whole. And a lot of people were upset with the tweets that Donald Trump would regularly put out. It may well be that he gets reelected in 2024. I don't know, I guess it's not reelected. If you've already been elected once, or you're reelected anyway. He got elected in 2016. He could get elected again in 2024 and actually benefit from being banned from Facebook and Twitter, because it's harder for him to dash off a tweet and create a firestorm surrounding it. And he may end up being a beneficiary before all is said and done. I don't know. My point is, censorship does not come from a place of strength. It comes from a place of weakness. And I believe that all of these big media companies are ripe for disruption in the years ahead, because authentic voices are what is going to drive affinity, and affinity is what is going to drive success. And so I think Joe Rogan is in a really good spot, and potentially he could end up getting fired, and it could actually work to his benefit, because if he got fired, he'd get paid out, he'd get to start a new media company, and his whole audience would follow him. And I think that's why Spotify's not going to be willing to fire him. We'll see what ends up happening there.